We learned last week in a remarkable and very tightly reported piece by Nicholas Wade, who for 30 years was the top science correspondent at the New York Times, that Tony Fauci himself signed off on funding U.S. tax dollars for the Wuhan Institute of Virology to do the research that caused the corona pandemic, that created COVID-19, which escaped from that lab. That clearly happened, and he definitely signed off on the funding for that research. But he hasn't apologized for that. He hasn't taken any responsibility for it. According to Tony Fauci, the real culprit behind this pandemic is systemic racism.
COVID-19 has shown a bright light on our own society's failings. When people of color get infected with SARS-CoV-2, they more likely will develop a severe consequence of the infection, almost relate to the social determinants of health, dating back to disadvantageous conditions that some people of color find themselves in from birth regarding the availability of an adequate diet, access to health care, and the undeniable effects of racism in our society.
Thanks, Dr. Fauci. Yeah, it's not my fault. Yes, I signed off on the funding that created COVID-19. But really the lesson is we've seen a spotlight shined on our society's failings. In other words, it's your fault. Right. Many believe this, of course, because it exculpates them. At today's White House press briefing, for example, someone from government television, PBS, explained that getting rid of mask mandates actually is racist.
The largest national nurses union is saying that the CDC guidelines on masks is putting frontline workers and especially people of color at risk, and that they're calling for the CDC to reverse that. What's the White House's stance on that union in particular, saying that their members and people of color are at risk?
Yeah. Candace Owens is the host of Candace and a frequent guest on the show, we are proud to say, and she joins us tonight. Candace Owens, thanks so much for coming on. So Dr. Fauci, a man who deals in science, in the things we know, has diverted blame from himself, where it ought to reside, clearly, to the rest of us by saying it's systemic racism that has caused the suffering of COVID. Assess this claim, if you would.
Oh, I mean, you know I love this. It's just so brilliant. The left is always looking for a victim narrative. And let me tell you, if there's ever been a victim that is deserving of airtime, it's science. Science has been killed by the left. Science is, it used to be this thing that we all loved. I'd like to eulogize science. That's because true. It made so much sense, and now it's suddenly over. And I like to say that Dr. Fauci to me is like, you know when you're a kid and you play that game Simon Says touch your head, Simon says touch your toes. You've always wondered who is Simon and why are we doing what he says? Simon is Dr. Fauci. He's making this stuff up as you go along. Wear your mask. Simon says wear your mask. Simon says don't wear your mask. Simon says now that COVID is racist and it affects black people more poorly. We don't know why he's saying it. It makes entirely no sense, but apparently a lot of people are following his orders, and this is his new push to blame this somehow on systemic racism. By the way, if he's concerned about systemic racism and he's talking about how COVID might affect black people, I think what he's hitting at is obesity, right? We represent like a higher percentage of people that are obese, black Americans, and obesity is the #1 killer in America. He might be onto something there, but it has nothing to do with race. Race is not determining whether or not you're fat or whether or not you're skinny. And these are good discussions that we should be having. Of course, what the left is obsessed with right now is politicizing science. And right now, the policy is, if you want to accomplish anything in life, just call the other thing racist. To say not to have what I want would be racist. And that's exactly what they do over and over and over again.
To eulogize science, there's something very poignant about that, because what you're saying is true. I mean, I guess there's a meme going around online that I can't resist repeating because it's so perfectly 2021. Why shouldn't, given the current state of air quotes science, people identify as vaccinated? Why do you need an actual vaccine when you can just say I'm vaccinated? I mean, if you can change your sex, why can't you change your vaccine status? Honestly.
I saw that, and I think it's brilliant. You know, they're saying that there is no such thing as an objective reality, right? Tucker, there's no such thing as objective reality. There's no such thing as being a girl or a boy anymore, and if you disagree with that, you're a bigot, I'm a bigot. Science is not real. Science is whatever we make it. I can walk into a room and I can be a mermaid if I want to be one. So you know what? I personally self-identify as somebody who's vaccinated. Not that it matters. I love that I went to the grocery store yesterday. I walk in. The day before, people are wearing masks. Today, nobody's wearing masks. There's nobody asking you to present any cards, right? So shouldn't people be asking the question, if science science was so real, why is this allowed suddenly? Why did he get to wave a magic wand? Again, Dr. Simon says, get to wave a magic wand and suddenly it's totally fine for people to walk in. Is he now saying he trusts people to make health decisions by themselves? That certainly can't be the case. This has always been about power from the very beginning. And I personally, Tucker, I think your program is responsible for a lot of these changes because you started investigating Dr. Fauci. You started asking the right questions about Dr. Fauci that everybody should be asking. And suddenly he's going, oh, look, society is returning to normal. Don't look at me, don't look at me. Wrong. Let's keep looking at Dr. Fauci because that man is corrupt.
I think the Simon Says analogy is absolutely perfect. If Fauci came out tomorrow and said, wear your underwear inside out and put on a Viking hat with horns, the entire Upper West Side of Manhattan would do it because he said so. And it just tells you a lot. Never realized what an obedient little country it was. Candace Owens, I appreciate your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.